So I made some videos before covering the takedown of the DWX full size. Picked this one up, and it's the compact. So we'll take down the gun and just kind of show you the insides and some real quick tips on how to take it apart and what you're looking at. So here's the slide, comes off, took off the grip panels. Slide comes off like a lot of handguns do. You can take the firing pin out pretty easily here. Careful, this thing's under spring tension, so it could go launching across the room. We'll show some of that later. I'm not going to take the optics plate off right now because I'll do that later. The pin for the extractor is staked in there, so just know that there's some markings in there, and that's totally normal. You'll have to push that out to get that out, but we aren't going to worry about that too much. Anyway, put the firing pin back in. Everything's great. Set that off to the side once we put it back together and get into kind of the meat and potatoes of the gun, which is the lower end. There's not a lot in these guns. They are very easy to work on. We're going to start with taking off the mainspring. It's kind of all one piece. There's a single pin with a flange on it. A little bit of pressure on that mainspring to help you slide it out. Kind of see it in detail there. There's the mainspring piece. It's all one. There's a spring and a plunger in there and a small pin to retain it. If you watch some of my other videos, there's a breakdown of that. The sear spring is standard fare for a 1911. I'm going to take the safety off right now, and yeah. So I kind of covered this in other videos, but cup your hand over the safety detent so it doesn't go flying across the room. You'll be very sad trying to find that. Anyway. No. As the man says,
as far as the handling of this matter is concerned, it was so botched up. I made so many bad judgments.
Now that we've covered what not to do, I'll put the detent back in real quick. I've seen some other videos and guys mentioning that this is very easy to manipulate. They didn't have a really positive safety. That is not my experience with this particular gun at all. The safety is extremely positive and very difficult to switch on or off. So, that might be something you want to tune up, but here's the right way to do this. Put your hand over that so when you do pop the safety off, the detent doesn't go flying across the room. Awesome. More taken down. There's a safety. I kind of lousily show you that it's very similar to the safety that's on the full size. It has a much shorter thumb area, but I believe they're interchangeable if you wanted a tiny safety on your gun. The chassis, there's one more pin. That's the hammer pin here to pop out. Easy peasy. It's flange like all these pins are. You can pull the chassis out. Maybe someday we'll get some frames for these guns. That would be amazing. I'd love a steel frame for this for competition use. Anyway, going to push out the pin that holds in the sear and the disconnector here. You can take out the hammer, sear, disconnector. Very easy to access all these parts. Very easy to get apart. Nice. Here's the trigger. I noticed that on this one, it actually comes with the set screw. My previous ones did not. So that's pretty cool. That'll adjust for over travel. No pre-travel adjustments on these. I have this pile of triggers here that I've previously purchased. One of them happened to show up as a compact. I am not confident that I ordered the correct one at the time, but if you get a trigger and you are installing it and it doesn't fit or work properly, verify that it is the right trigger bow. They are not the same size. The narrower one goes on the compact and the wider one goes on the full size. And they can fit the compact one on the full size gun, but it won't function properly. And that's something you should check out if you're having problems. Anyway, I'm putting my own little over travel screw in here, which is a PIM. It's the type of screw that's used in metal fabrication, but it seems to be just the right amount of over travel, and I like setting them up with these. So I just am kind of fitting the trigger in here. You can see some little tangs on the edge of the trigger there, the bow that will adjust for pre-travel. That's something you'll have to mess around with yourself. I'm going to put the chassis back together here. It's a nice machined piece, and it's nice to be able to have it outside of the gun so you can put these pieces back in and you don't have a whole gun to deal with. A little fiddly to get this back in here. Make sure you put everything back together properly. You can drop your hammer in there whenever you want. I'm just doing it here now, but line everything up, drop this pin back in, make sure you push it flat and you have it in from the right side, and drop that back into the gun. Be sure to line everything up and not mess around, and hey, put your trigger back in there before you do. I didn't spend a lot of time messing around with this because I've done these other guns so many times, but just kind of make sure there's nothing bound up and slap this thing back together. Line up your hammer pin once you get it actually lined up, but line up your hammer pin with the hammer, put that guy back in. It should sit flush. Off screen here, there's a little magnetic tray. I highly recommend something like that. That will help you out immensely. And the next thing I think I'm going to put in here is the detent, which I already showed before for the safety, but slide that guy in and put your hammer in full cock. You could put the sear spring in ahead of time and the mainspring and stuff. I didn't do that. It's not really important what order you do it exactly, but just make sure you don't launch this thing across the room while you're doing this. This tool comes with the gun, and it's perfect, and it works great for this. And so, yeah, that's one of the things it's for. You won't mar up your gun, and it fits right in there. Make sure your safety works. I'd put the gun the rest of the way together, or at least put the mainspring on and the sear spring in there to check these function. I noticed when taking this gun apart that the sear spring that came with it kind of has some very aggressive bends in it, and maybe the geometry is a little short on this with the curve of the back strap. I'm not sure. But when you put it back together, make sure that you get the tops of those legs of the spring where they're supposed to be. There's lots of videos out there that you can find out about. Right here, I'm just making sure it's in there properly. And with a little bit of pressure on it, it'll release the trigger. If you turn this upside down, it'll help drop the leg of the hammer strut into the mainspring. A little bit of pressure, put your pin back in. Easy peasy. These guns are real easy to work on. Don't be intimidated. Check for a half cock and a full cock, and if you're not getting any of this, you probably put the sear spring in incorrectly, or you've made some adjustments that have caused it not to function anymore. I'm going to put the slide stop pin back in there. Don't scratch your frame up doing this. I'm going to check it out, make sure that the hammer works and the safety works and the whole gun functions like I expect it to. I wanted a short trigger in here, so that's why mine's in there, and it's black, and I know that makes everybody sad because there's no red trigger, but hey, it's my gun. I would caution everybody to be very careful when taking these grip panels on and off. Aluminum frame, not a ton of threads there, some very fine threaded screws, and this would be very easy to cross thread and just really mess up your grip frame there. So be very careful. I'm just using this tiny little screwdriver. It's a number 10 Torx. And, just be sure that your threads are engaging properly before you go torquing it down here. I'm trying to cross thread the thing and ruin my gun. But be careful, be gentle, don't rush. You're at the end of the thing here. That's about it. I've got several other videos that go over these guns, the full-size guns. The small one's the same, basically. And, yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Like and subscribe and all that jazz. Go carry this, buddy. See you on the flip side.